Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. And it gives me immense pleasure to introduce Owais Anjum and Ali Rizvi, both Silicon Valley veterans and senior GIKians who are Wapistanis as well in terms of having worked abroad and then gone back to Pakistan to set something up of their own. Their company eMumba, I wouldn't steal their thunder, just would do a brief intro. 150-person IT services shop based out of Islamabad. I've had the pleasure of visiting their offices, and the sort of attention to detail and the kind of sort of cultural and Ali has sort of tried to bring to the plates is very palpable. So the kind of things where intentionality around culture that you see in big corporate IT setups in the Silicon Valley, I could feel some of that when I visited them in their offices. And the idea today is for Owais and Ali to share their insights on the IT services sector as it currently stands in the Pakistani context, and also give some inspiration and ideas for those of us who are looking to either invest in this sector in Pakistan, or at some point go back and play an active role, or for that matter try and contribute to it while staying where we are right now. So with that, I would pass it on to Owais bhai. Good to have you here, and over to you, sir.
Thank you, Ali, or assalamu alaikum, everybody. I think the topic is very interesting, very close to my heart. The only challenge is going to be कि मैं एक घंटे में अपनी सारी तकरीर बंद कैसे करूं. So I'll try to be concise. Ali, I think the way we should do it is कि I think I've tried to sort of break my presentation into 3 or 4 chunks. So हम करेंगे कि we'll cover one chunk, we'll take a bit of a pause and take any Q&A on that, and then we'll move on to the next topic, so that it's not a very long monologue, and we can have some discussions happening in between as well. Also, can you let everybody know कि अगर questions हैं या कुछ comments हैं तो वो कैसे pose होंगे, वो chats में जाएंगे या कैसे जाएंगे, just for my own understanding and for the understanding of the participants as well.
Gee, just to sort of reiterate the discipline we followed in the last few sessions is that we generally have the audience on mute with their cameras turned off, and I will track the chat window for questions as they come up and try and embed them into the conversation as we go along. So
ठीक है, तो I'll just stay focused on my presentation and I'll not worry about monitoring the chat. Okay, that sounds good.
Please.
So ठीक है, तो the overall agenda is to say कि there are essentially 4 acts. The first one is essentially introductions, personal introduction, mine and Ali, and that will sort of lead into the introduction of the company as well. And that's very important because a lot of what we are going to be discussing is going to be driven by our personal experiences and things around that. The second section is going to be around IT services, and this is not about eMumba. This is just about the fundamentals of IT services as I see or as we see them. Particularly in the context of Pakistan, कि उसकी unit economics क्या हैं, उसके basic fundamental rules of engagement क्या हैं. The third one is the case for Pakistan, कि once we understand the basics and the fundamentals, Pakistan की situation, the pros and cons, advantages, the opportunities, all of those things. And the fourth section is around where can this group be relevant, and of course हर बंदे का different उसके अंदर interest हो सकता है. But I'll throw out a few ideas that we have successfully experimented with in the past. And then, of course, we can have a Q&A. So starting with myself, I'm from batch 1, GIKI, graduated in 97. I did my MBA in 2005. पहले 3 साल मैंने लाहौर में काम किया. There was a company called Cricout, then moved to California, worked in the Valley for 6 years with multiple startups, did my MBA from there. Or I think 2006 was a key year in my career because that is when I decided to move back to Pakistan. The decision was primarily driven by family reasons, primarily my parents. लेकिन उस move में there was a very interesting situation that developed. मैं जिस company के लिए काम कर रहा था, I was able to convince them to start their operations in Pakistan. I see Raza on this call here as well, and I think it reminds me that my biggest challenge was क्या वापस यहाँ जाके office कैसे set up करना है, and I think I shot that email in my network, and Raza called me, we have an office in Islamabad, why don't you sort of come in and take a shared space with us, and the whole thing was done in a matter of couple of days because we've known each other for a long time. So anyways, I moved back. I set up Numerics Pakistan. Ran that for almost 6 years. Eventually, it was a 40 people team. Very empowered because 90% of the global engineering was being done in Pakistan. So ye wo sort of chunge wala office nahi. It was a very, very empowered office. It was eventually acquired by McKinsey. And a little before that, I think I was going through sort of this crisis of what to do next since 2009. It took me 2 years to figure out what I wanted to do next. And 2011 was the next key milestone in my career where I decided to quit my job and venture into the entrepreneurial landscape. So for the next 3 years, 2011 onwards, I did 2 startups back to back, both product focused, both failed. Not from a product point of view, but from a monetization point of view. And I guess ab jab 3-4 saal jab startup kar lete hain, you dig a hole for yourself, you're not successful, but I guess you just become a very different person where you don't want to go back to the job market again. And I guess it was the same story for me where I did my third venture, which is what eMumba Services is right now. So diversified into doing services. Now it is our almost 6th year into services. We're doing fairly well, around 150 people team, very compelling customer base and, very good prospects in terms of growth. Outside of, the typical job thing, I've been always very much into volunteering. I used to volunteer a lot when I was in the US with Open Silicon Valley and Hidayah and a couple of other sort of non-profit organizations. When I moved back to Pakistan, I founded the Open Islamabad chapter. And most recently, I worked with AGC and a couple of other universities in advisory capacity. So moving on, I think Ali, why don't you give a brief introduction, and then we'll go onto companies sort of intro.
Sure. So my name is Ali Rizvi, batch 2EE, VP of R&D at eMumba, past 2 years. I'm a Silicon guy, 20 plus years of experience, a couple of patents from my years at Apple. Got my start in ASIC design right out of GIKI. There's a company, Andor Logic, used to be based in Islamabad. Many of you may know about it. Worked there for 4 years and then decided to go for my master's. Completed that from University of Michigan at Ann Arbor, and then moved to the Silicon Valley. And at that time, the IPTV industry was booming. So I got to work on all kinds of cool hardware for video codecs at various companies. Ended up at Apple, where I worked for about 4 years before moving back. I worked on a multimedia subsystem. So if you guys use FaceTime on your iDevices, that's the team that I work with. We help build that platform that enables stuff like that. And 2 years back, 2018, I moved back to Pakistan and joined eMumba. So that's a whole story in itself that we probably can get into. It's multifaceted. It's not like it's not like just a single thing, like one reason why I did that. There's multiple things that go into it. But the key thing there is that I've known Owais over the years, like when he was in the Valley, and then he's a frequent visitor to the Valley, so been in touch over the years. At eMumba, I've built this vertical that we call accelerated software, and what we focused on is low latency, high throughput applications for packet processing and mostly for trading, feed handlers primarily. We've achieved sort of hardware, FPGA, dedicated hardware rivaling numbers with the software implementation that we're really proud of, that the team has achieved. And we have accelerated network applications team, and we also have an embedded systems team. So that's sort of where I am at this point in my career. Yeah.
Thank you, Ali. So also, I mean, moving on to, I mean, this is some of the other sort of key people we have here in Islamabad in our leadership group. And I think one of the things that I feel really proud about is, I mean, you know, monetization and revenue, one thing, but I think we've been able to attract really, you know, top leadership. I mean, all of these people that you see on the screen here, actually, there's another GK over there. These are extremely, extremely well-respected people with global experience, some of them PhDs. And to me, I think more than the customers, more than the revenue we have, this is my true asset in terms of what we've been able to build. You know, a very high-level bird's eye view of eMumba. So 150 team members, and there are 4 key verticals that we focus on. One of them is fintech, and that is, you know, the first manifestation of the work that Ali's team is doing in terms of accelerated software. But it may, you know, we may delve into other areas as well where low latency and high speed is extremely important. The second area is enterprise networks. So that we sort of specialize in building applications for enterprise networks. This includes companies like Cisco, Juniper, A10 networks of the world. And we understand networks really well, and we understand web applications really well. The third area is DevOps, and the fourth area is data engineering. And then we do a lot of design work. You know, we worked with almost 50 plus customers over the years. I mean, the list that you see over here is just a select list of the companies that we're currently working with. There are actually more as well. But some of them are very compelling names. And we have done some really remarkable work over the years, to the extent that, you know, we have built enterprise grade applications that are running in production, high scale, high volume applications that were completely designed, developed, tested, deployed, and customer supported over here in our office. I think we are, I don't want to claim it as yet, but I think we are in good shape to start working with both Microsoft and Salesforce in the coming months. And those would be extremely big wins for us. Also, just to give you an idea of how our team is broken down, this is a tree map in terms of the functions or the capabilities that we have. And some of this will be useful in the subsequent discussion. So the largest chunk is, you know, the team that works in the front end, analytics, dashboards, and visualizations. Then we have a group for backend engineering, then QA and automation, and then data engineering. Accelerated software, which is Ali's group, and embedded, the networks, and then DevOps and infra, and then design, UX, and marketing and content. So this is a mix, and it's very important to see that. I mean, when we call ourselves IT services company, we're just not in the business of writing lines of code. You essentially build products for customers, and products take a lot more than just writing lines of code. So the right bottom corner, marketing and content, is actually one of the key groups that we have, because this is where we enable our customers to roll out their products faster, better. Because, you know, when you're dealing with enterprises, it's very interesting that you can build the product for them, but they're not able to get enough timely support from other groups within the organization. So the marketing might say that, okay, we are packed and we are not able to give you our quality time for the next 6 months. And what that means is that, you know, that group and us lose the opportunity of rolling out the product in time. So over a period of, you know, the past few years, we have built those core competencies that allow our customers to be successful beyond just writing lines of code. So I think this is kind of the high level background. So I'll dive into the second section, which is, you know, talking about the fundamentals of IT services as we have learned and understood so far. Ali, do you think, are there any questions or comments or anything that you need to ask at this point before I dive into the second section?
So there's no specific questions on the chat as yet, but you know, just to sort of build on the areas of focus that you've identified, have they been sort of reactive, organic responses to the kind of clients you found, or have you been intentional in terms of picking the areas of focus?
That's a very good question. Actually, जब आप start करते हैं तो you don't have a lot of choice, right? आपके जो 3-4 लोग initially होते हैं, you know, they can do a few things, and you just look for any opportunity that you can convert and build your team around that, and build the opportunity around that, right? But as you grow, You can either grow horizontally or you can grow vertically. Horizontal growth का मतलब ये है कि आप कहेंगे जी ठीक है, we are an IT services company and we'll do everything, right? We chose a different path. We said that, okay, we'll do a few things and we'll try to be really good at that, which means saying no to many, many opportunities. So ये जो 4 verticals अभी पीछे हमारे नजर आ रहे थे, ये evolve हुए over the past few years. कुछ चीजों में we stumbled into them. For instance, networks की opportunity, we didn't have that DNA. We stumbled upon an opportunity. It was a huge opportunity and we built that vertical, and now it's one of our core competence areas. Fintech area is a consequence of Ali moving back and joining us. We would have never thought about doing this low latency stuff because, I mean, nobody in our team understood that space at all. But when somebody like Ali moves back from the US and joins you, you rethink the whole paradigm and you figure out not how you fit Ali into the equation, you figure out how you can convert Ali's expertise into new opportunities. And that is how this new vertical came into being. And every year we do a lot of thinking. Every quarter, every year we do a lot of thinking as to what can we sort of eliminate so that we can stay more focused on the core things. We used to be very mobile centric. We used to have a large group that we stopped developing. इसी तरह से कुछ technologies में हम काम करते थे that we don't work in anymore. So it's a constant exercise of evolution, staying at the cutting edge and staying focused on the key areas, and it also means that shutting off a few other things.
Very, very interesting. Just to sort of build on that same question now, with the way COVID-19 has sort of impacted the whole, not just the technology landscape, our whole sort of lives altogether. Are there any specific opportunities that, you feel that would you go for a new vertical to augment these 4, or is there space to really sort of, blossom one of these into your core revenue generators?
Again, a very good question. I think हम लोग थोड़े lucky अभी तक इस हिसाब से रहे हैं कि हमारे जो customers हैं, I think we have 13 active customers right now. None of them was in the direct line of fire. Actually, उनमें से एक का था. One of them was in the baseball industry, sports analytics, and of course they've been hit hard. But it was a very small customer. But majority, they were not in the direct line of fire. What I mean by that is कि ये लोग tourism, ये travel industry में नहीं थे, या oil and gas में नहीं थे, which have been really demolished, right? Because if you were working with them, I mean, you would have been in the direct line of fire as well. We just have a bit of a breathing space. That's what I believe, that is the second wave, third wave, fourth wave भी आएगा. So we were just being very careful in terms of how we operate and what other opportunities we pursue. At the same time, we are seeing extremely fast growth in certain verticals. और मैं 2 का बताता हूँ जिसमें हम actively involved हैं इस वक्त. हम लोग Olympics के लिए काम कर रहे थे through a partner. So we're building this application for audience engagement. कि आपका लेट से 100 meters की sprint होने वाली है, स्टेडियम में लोग बैठे हुए हैं, 15 मिनट भी रहते हैं और बड़ी स्क्रीन पे क्वेश्चन आया कि भाई who won the 1996 100 meter sprint, and you could sort of give your answers through your mobile device, and your name would show up on the large screen or what have you. That has been sort of, the good thing is that Olympics is not cancelled, it's just been pushed out, so I think that project will still stay intact. लेकिन I think उसमें बहुत सारी जो चीजें कर रहे थे, we have found a new niche, which is virtual conferencing. So US के अंदर, I think hundreds of millions of dollars are spent every month on physical conferences. वो Cisco की conference हो रही है, Cisco live हो रही है, AWS event हो रही है, Apple का event हो रहा है, Oracle का event हो रहा है, और एक event के ऊपर hundreds of millions of dollars spent होते हैं, right? Because there's travel, there's food, there's rental spaces and what have you. Now, none of that is happening because the physical events are not going to happen. And all of these companies are now trying to go virtual. Actually, they have already gone virtual, right? So, बहुत सारी जो engagement का काम sporting industry के लिए कर रहे थे, now we are doing that for virtual conferencing, right? And that's a green field because इसके अंदर बहुत primitive level पे वो लोग operate कर रहे हैं. So there's tremendous opportunity. So if any company has a relationship with one of these large companies, वो Cisco है, वो Intel है, अगर वो आप vendor है, आप उनके supplier हैं, and you can build something quickly. I mean, it's a matter of time. If you can build something quickly, there's tremendous opportunity. Likewise, the second opportunity that we saw is around in the healthcare space, जहाँ पे telemedicine is becoming hot, right? It was people were pushing this for a long time, right? लेकिन लोगों की habits change नहीं होती हैं, right? Regulation की भी मसले थे, but primarily habits का मसला था कि यार जैसे हम कहते हैं यार रिमोट वर्क पता नहीं चलेगा नहीं चलेगा, लेकिन अब सब लोग we are forced to do it and realize यार it works, right? Now people are forced to have this conversation, video chat with the doctor, and they realize yeah, this works, right? So there's tremendous opportunity in that space because people are not ready for that, right? So ये दो verticals हमें सामने नजर आ रहे हैं, right? Having said that, हम बाकी जिन verticals में काम कर रहे हैं, networking industry है या fintech है, I think they are relatively steady. तो इस वक्त हम कोई major change of direction pursue नहीं कर रहे हैं. We are trying to stay close to fundamentals, क्योंकि जो हमारी core strengths हैं, as long as we stay close to that, I think we can switch between verticals quite easily.
Sahi. Okay. So there's a couple of questions which I'll summarize, and I believe your rest of the deck you'll be touching on them. One was around, are you specifically offering AI and machine learning services within the analytics domain? And the second one's around a bit of elaboration on the fintech vertical. Are you developing custom ASIC chips, or would be integrating sensors with something like FPGAs and custom softwares, etc.? So I'm not, if you want to address them now, feel free to, otherwise we can cover them when you reach this specific part of your
I think the second question है वो हम एक slide में अली उसको cover कर लेंगे. But to answer the first question, no, we're not doing AI and ML. Actually हमने 2 साल पहले we created a group in AI ML. हमने 6 महीने invest किया. We built a very strong team, and then we realized that majority of the AI ML work circles around data engineering. Every AI ML work needs to have data engineering. अगर आप एक services company है, तो आप larger market को pursue करना चाहते हैं. That is why जो मेरा sort of verticals के अंदर, we intentionally do not write data science and AI and ML and all of those sexy words. We say data engineering, right? तो हमारा focus has shifted from AI and ML to data engineering, because that is there's a larger opportunity around that. Okay, so this is a mind map. So the whole idea is कि मैं आपको थोड़ा सा एक based on my understanding explain करना चाह रहा हूँ कि एक IT services company के fundamental building blocks क्या हैं, या अगर आप एक IT services company को analyze करना चाहते हैं या खुद build करना चाहते हैं या evaluate करना चाह रहे हैं, तो what are the key things that you should be looking at, right? So in no particular order, I think let's talk about unit economics, right? So fundamentally, आपकी team के अंदर essentially you have a team and you're sort of charging for those services. What is the unit economics? How many dollars can you charge per resource per month, averaged over 12 months, right? Or that average is very important, because हो सकता है आप एक महीने बहुत ज़्यादा charge करें, then you have 3 महीने आप charge नहीं कर पा रहे because people are sitting on the bench and what have you. So because there's $2,500 per resource per month. If you can hit that being in Pakistan, that's a very, very compelling number to have, right? और मैं इसको मज़ीद भी explain करूँगा in a lot more detail, but let's just take a note of that. दूसरी चीज़ जो समझने वाली वो bench strength है, कि you always need to have people on the bench, at least 10%, if not more. If you can afford to have more, depending upon कि आपकी business pipeline और visibility कितनी ज़्यादा है, even better. और उसका रीजन ये कि आप क्वालिटी पीपल रिएक्टिवली हायर नहीं कर सकते कि अभी कस्टमर कह रहा है बंदे चाहिए. नो, आई मीन यू कैन नॉट हायर. you'll take hasty decisions and you'll make more mistakes, right? So what you want is that you want to be proactive in your hiring. जब भी आपको अपॉर्चुनिटी मिलती है, अच्छे लोग नजर आ रहे हैं आपको, you hire them and you keep them on the bench, right? आजकल कोविड के हालात हैं, बट अगर कोविड की सिचुएशन ना होती तो दिस इज अ ग्रेजुएशन सीजन और हम इसमें हम 10-15 लोग हायर करते हैं, बिकॉज दिस इज आवर इन्वेस्टमेंट इन द नेक्स्ट 6-9-12 months. And we're always on the look for people coming back from the US or other sort of places, or senior people who exist in the ecosystem. The third element is people, right? So the first thing to understand is that aapki jo strength hai, it is to be able to attract people, it is to be able to train them, it is to be able to retain them, right? Or ye teenon principles very important hai. If you don't have a strong brand, right? I mean, do people want to join eMumba in Islamabad, right? If the answer is not a yes, then we have not done a good job. Then we'll be struggling. Then when we bring people, do we have the culture of training and investing in them so that they become really competent in certain areas? And then how do we retain them, right? Or retention ke andar, there are sort of two elements that are very important to understand. Attrition ko maine bhi explode kiya hai, there's natural attrition and there's preventable attrition. What I mean by natural attrition is there's certain fundamentals that you cannot overcome. अगर किसी बंदे का एज वन हो गया, उसने अमेरिका जाना है, आप उसको नहीं रोक सकते. अगर किसी खातून की शादी होगी and she's moving to a different city, there's nothing you can do about it. कोई पढ़ने के लिए मास्टर्स के लिए बाहर जाना चाह रहा है, there's nothing you can do about it. So this is what I call natural attrition. The good thing about natural attrition is that this doesn't happen overnight, right? And most of in चीजों में, if you have the right culture and the right relationship, people will let you know of these things many months ahead of time, because कुछ चीजों में तो आपने उनको help भी करना है अगर वो मास्टर्स के लिए जा रहे हैं या वीजा के लिए अप्लाई कर रहे हैं, right? So you can plan those things very efficiently. कि भाई 6 महीने बाद ये बंदा most likely जाएगा, and you can plan your transition. The other attrition which can hurt you is the one that is preventable. If people are leaving on other companies in the local market, then there's something missing, there's something wrong. You also need to understand that generally people would fall into 3 categories in the company, the IT services company. The first group is the core group that जिसके through आपने revenue generate करना है, जिसकी primary value high है in the market. जो हमने मिसाल के तौर पे जो 4 verticals identify किए, उसमें जो core लोग हैं उनको हमने sell करना है, उनकी services को sell करना है. So that is where most of our revenue comes from. Then we have supporting roles. जैसे मैंने आपको कुछ example दी, marketing के लोग हैं जो कि customers के लिए काम कर रहे हैं, documentation का काम कर रहे हैं, videos बना रहे हैं, लेकिन वो उतने profitable नहीं होंगे, या शायद आप उनको बहुत low utilization पे रखें, लेकिन आपने उनको इसलिए रखा because they are important supporting functions, right? Maybe you have a lot of people in your design team जो कि have useful नहीं होंगे, right? But they're very important because they help build a complete product, right? तो और जो तीसरा ग्रुप है, that is overheads, people like myself, right? जो कि अपने आप को जो directly monetizable नहीं है, उसके अंदर accounts के लोग हैं, finance के लोग हैं, there are many other people, sales, biz dev, whatever, right? So what is the mix of these people? And you need to be efficient with these things. Wise yet efficient, right? तो मैंने जो ऊपर आपको पहले नंबर बताया था, $2,500 per month per resource, that is for this core group, right? It is not across everybody, right? So core group ने वो revenue generate करना है, and they have to compensate for the revenue that is not being generated by other people, right? So there needs to be a balancing act, and we'll talk about these numbers a little bit more later on as well. दूसरी जो चीज़ है, जो एलिमेंट है मेट्रिक जो देखने वाले, वो फोकस है कि आपका फोकस वर्टिकल है या हॉरिजॉन्टल है. मैंने इस पे जो अली का क्वेश्चन था, I've already spoken about it, so I'll sort of, in the interest of time, not go into a lot of details. Then customers, right? So customers may, initially you start with startups because your company doesn't have a brand, it doesn't have any credibility, you don't have a portfolio, right? You can still get business from a startup because, if one of my friends, again, let me point out Raza, right? Raza एक startup कर रहा है, Raza knows me, he'll trust me, यार ये काम कर सकता है, मैं कहता हूँ हाँ यार मैं करके दे दूँगा, he'll trust me, it's my credibility that I'm selling, I'll get some work and get it done, right? So 99% of the IT services companies start with working through startups, and then slowly and steadily they graduate to working with mid-sized companies. And if the companies are successful, properly structured, they may end up working with enterprises, because working with enterprises, breaking into enterprises is not easy, right? And that's a subject by itself, कि, उसके अंदर transitions क्या है. Ideally, you want to have a reasonable mix. Startups are very star performance hungry. आपकी, अगर आपके 100 बंदों की सर्विसेज की टीम है, तो उसमें शायद 5, 6, 7, 10 स्टार परफॉर्मर्स होंगे. That's pretty much it. We understand कि, I mean, it's not easy to get star performance. स्टार्टअप जब भी आएगी वो कहेगी मुझे 2 बंदे चाहिए, दोनों स्टार चाहिए, मुझे 4 चाहिए, चारों स्टार चाहिए, right? So you cannot build a large company by just serving startups. It just doesn't work that way. And then of course they're very unpredictable as well. Then revenue distribution is very important. कि आपके number of customers and what is the distribution of revenue against those customers. 5 अगर आपके customers हैं और 50% revenue एक customer से आ रहा है, then your risk is very lopsided. Because अगर एक customer गिरता है तो 50% of your revenue is gone, right? So you have to be mindful of the revenue distribution, and then have a basic idea कि अगर आपका, जो मैंने 1/5, 2/10, 5/20 का लिखा हुआ है कि 1/5 means कि अगर आपको 1 million का revenue आप sort of achieve करने जा रहे हैं, तो you should at least have 5 customers with reasonable distribution. अगर आप 2 million पे हैं तो perhaps 10, and it's a non-linear thing, because अगर आप 5 million तक जा रहे हैं तो perhaps you need to have larger customers and a larger footprint, and a lot more money should be coming from single source. Business development, what is the method? So हमारा जो method है, that's very top down, which fundamentally means that we work through our network. We reach out to people who trust us, who know us, and we keep on expanding our network. And when there is an opportunity, there is a need, they reach out to us, right? And so all we do is just keep on investing in our network, keep on growing our network, right? So it's a game of patience, but it pays off, right? So Hamari company eMumba abhi tak has entirely been built on the top-down model. We're sort of trying to augment it with the bottom-up approach as well going forward. Lekin this model has worked very well. And again, matlab iski details mein hum bahut ja sakte hain, but and again, I think I want to sort of point the fact that the GIKI network has been a very, very key contributor towards our success so far, right? Again, why? Because there's this tremendous amount of trust that exists, irrespective of whether we were in the same batch or not. You meet people, who are 10 years apart, never met before, and there's this tremendous amount of trust just because of that brand. Bottoms up is where you sort of do the cold calls. You reach out to companies that you think may have the need, and you start pitching to them, and then you sort of build it up there. Another very, very important metric to understand is the runway, right? Runway का मतलब ये है कि मैंने यहाँ पे 6 महीने का rule लिखा हुआ है, 6 months rule, and the rule is कि if overnight आपका 50% revenue lose हो जाता है, can you survive 6 months without losing your people or without having to lose your people? Because keep in mind कि as a services company आपकी IP आपके लोग हैं. अगर आपका एक major customer lose हो गया और उसके बाद आप अपने बंदे भी lose कर जाते हैं, तो I mean it's very hard to recover from that. Because कल को अगर आपको opportunity मिलती है and you don't have your people and the trust of other people as you've lost them as well, it's very, very hard to recover. So a healthy equation in my mind is that, if you are hit with a 50% revenue loss overnight, you should have enough reserves कि आप 6 महीने last कर सकें, because that is sufficient time, reasonable amount of time for you to rebuild the company or rebuild the revenue source. Profitability, roughly, I think 20% is a good number. And again, it would vary depending upon आप कितने aggressive हैं. मिसाल के तौर पे हम aggressive रहे in terms of investing in new verticals. हमने data science का vertical create किया, which meant a significant investment in people without generating any revenue for a long duration. हमने अभी जो fintech का बहुत सारा काम किया, it's been an investment. We could have chosen not to do that, right? But हम ये investment इसलिए कर रहे हैं because we expect कि इसको downstream हम अपनी monetization या अपनी profitability को increase कर सकते हैं through that, right? But generally, I think close to 20%, 18, 20% is a good profitability number to be hitting. So let me go back to the deck now and see what we have next.
Just a quick recap. I mean, we're 25 minutes from closure of the session, and the questions that were there on the chat, you've addressed most of them. There's just one specific one around talent retention, where how do you resist any sort of talent poaching from one of your customers, right? Have you had any such scenarios where your customers liked your talent so much that they were willing to poach them?
Any customers don't do that. At least the good customers don't do that. I think that's that's plain out unethical. So we've never been hit with that kind of a situation. Actually, ek dafa hua tha, but I mean, that was a very weird. Generally, it doesn't happen, right? Retention is a very detailed subject, and it's not an easy subject. You have to do many, many, many things day in, day out. जो तुमने शुरू में कहा था ना कि वो it's primarily about culture. क्या culture create करते हैं that allow people to stick with you, right? Do you truly believe in investing in your people? Do you truly value your people, right? That's the fundamental thing, because if you do that, then you would do things, that would sort of ensure their retention, because people generally, it's not just a salary. Salary is a very insignificant contributor towards the decision of retaining in a company, staying in a company, or leaving a company, right? There are many, many other intangibles, right? So again, I mean, that's a very detailed topic. I mean, that starting 6 years ago and even today, मेरा at least 20% time set उन चीज़ों पे लगता है. It is cultural evangelism and things around that. Do we have the right environment and culture in the company? Are we investing in our people? Because if I stop doing that, you might be able to generate business, but will not have a team to deliver it. ये जो टेबल है दिस इज ये आई थिंक उसी की थोड़ी सी डिटेल वर्किंग है। जो आपको लेफ्ट साइड पे ब्लू में नंबर्स नजर आ रहे हैं, ये समझ लें कि रेवेन्यू के नंबर्स है कि दिस इज 1 मिलियन, दिस इज 2 मिलियन, 5 मिलियन, 5 मिलियन, राइट। ऊपर मैंने नंबर्स जो रेड में लिखे हुए हैं, ये यूनिट इकोनॉमिक्स के नंबर है कि रेवेन्यू पर की पर्सन पर मंथ, वो 1500 है या 2000 है या 2500 है या 3000 है, राइट। और जो टेबल के अंदर आपको नंबर्स नजर आ रहे हैं, मिसाल के तौर पे 83, दिस इज एन इंडिकेशन के हाउ मेनी की पीपल वुड यू नीड टू हैव इन योर टीम, राइट। अगर आप 2000 पर की पर्सन per month के ऊपर हैं, तो you need at least 83 people in your team to be able to hit $2 million in revenue. Keep in mind कि जैसे मैंने कहा था कि the categorization of people, these are the core people. इसके अलावा जो supporting में रोल हैं, the rule of thumb is कि perhaps आपके 25 to 30% लोग होंगे जो कि will be on top of this, right? So maybe you should think about a 30% number, the 30% number who are on top. So maybe if the number is 83, we are talking about maybe 115 people team who can hit to $2 million in revenue if you're able to maintain this 2,000 per person per month mark, right? Or again, I'm talking about this specific to Pakistan. I'm talking about this specific to a Pakistani company trying to generate most of its revenue from the US market, right? इसमें market to market बड़ी variations हैं, right? तो ये जो सारे numbers, ये जो सारी working है, this is based on our experience being in Pakistan in the context of working with the US market. एक और एलिमेंट जो समझने वाला है, that is IT exports versus local work, right? So मैं आपको मोटी मोटी चीज़ें बता देता हूँ। एक्सपोर्ट्स वाली बात है, जब आप इंटरनेशनल मार्केट में काम करते हैं, यू टेंड टू गेट बेटर रेट्स, आपको टाइमली पेमेंट्स मिल जाती हैं। द मोस्ट इम्पॉर्टेंट थिंग इज के पाकिस्तान में टैक्स हॉलीडे है, विच मीन्स के कंपनीज के ऊपर देयर इज जीरो कॉर्पोरेट टैक्स, विच मीन्स कि आप जो प्रॉफिट्स बनाते हैं उसके अंदर एट द एंड ऑफ ईयर आप जो प्रॉफिट्स डिक्लेयर करते हैं उसमें आपने गवर्नमेंट को 20%, 25%, आई थिंक यूएस में परहैप्स इट इज 22%, व्हाटएवर इट इज, पाकिस्तान में भी इट्स वेरी हाई, आई थिंक इट्स 23% और व्हाटएवर, वो आपको नहीं देना होता, विच इज अ ह्यूज इंसेंटिव। अगर आप डोमेस्टिक वर्क में जाते हैं तो आपको लोअर रेट्स हैं, अकाउंटिंग बिकम्स एक्सट्रीमली कॉम्प्लेक्स, heavy corporate taxes, as I said, it's one of the highest, at least in this region, and delayed payments, जो कि आपके ऊपर एक working capital का एक बड़ा tremendous pressure उसके ऊपर डाल जाता है. So overall, there is a huge disincentive in the system to work locally, which is very unfortunate, right? It is unfortunate because local market के अंदर there's a lot of opportunities with different flavors. Local market में if there's a larger talent pool अगर काम कर रहा है तो वो talent pool prepare हो रहा है for exports market, because जो exports की market है is perhaps more difficult to tap into. It requires more premium resources. It is perhaps core competence आपको ज़्यादा चाहिए. और अगर supporting local ecosystem नहीं है तो for companies like us, it takes a lot more effort to get people to train them and to qualify them, where we can say कि हाँ जी they're ready for the international market. डोमेस्टिक वर्क में एक्सेप्शंस एग्जिस्ट करती हैं, मैं उसमें इसकी डिटेल्स में नहीं जाऊंगा, लेकिन देयर सम कंपनीज जो कि जिनको वास्ट कंपनीज कहा जाता है, जो टेलकोस के साथ काम कर रही हैं, दे मेड क्रैप लोड्स ऑफ मनी, बट इट्स अ वेरी स्पेसिफिक नैरो सेगमेंट. आउटसाइड ऑफ दैट, it's a hard market to tap into.
Just on the domestic work side, I mean, those of us sitting abroad recently, if you go by the fanfare on social media, this whole Digital Pakistan initiative that the government's taken, seems to be an opportunity. But do you feel that's something you would actively pursue, or you're taking it reactively in terms of what comes your way?
नहीं, हम लोग एक्टिवली परस्यू उसको नहीं करेंगे. उसमें देखें, पहली चीज़ तो ये है कि जैसे मैंने कहा कि that opportunity needs to be created. So वो जो initiative है, that's very, very important, right? At some point I don't think we'll be the innovators in that. We might be laggards. और इसकी reason ये है कि अगर हमने local market में काम करना है तो वो eMumba in its current form, in its current culture, in its current setup नहीं operate करेगी. We'll have to spin out a different entity for a lot of reasons with a very different mix of skills. हमारी टीम से अगर कहा जाए कि आप एक proposal लिखें, तो हमारी टीम में कोई बंदा एक proposal नहीं लिख सकता, because हम जिस market में काम कर रहे हो कभी proposal नहीं मांगते, right? अगर आप यूएस में और गवर्नमेंट कॉन्ट्रैक्टिंग कर रहे हैं तो आपके पास एक टीम होगी हु आर स्पेशलिस्ट इन राइटिंग प्रपोजल्स, राइट? अगर आप गवर्नमेंट के साथ काम कर रहे हैं तो यस, यू विल हैव टू एंड अप राइटिंग, आपने आरएफपीज आएंगी, आप उसके ऊपर बिडिंग करनी है, व्हाटएवर इट इज, राइट? और फिर फिर अच्छा जी अब ठीक है आप अप्रूव हो गया अब आप 40 बंदों की टीम लेके आए 40 बंदों की टीम कहाँ से I mean it's a very different execution and dynamics altogether, right? तो हमारे लिए I think I think we see tremendous opportunity in the international market and we will stay super focused on the markets which are very similar to the markets that we're operating in. हम US से UK move किया primarily because there are a lot of similarities. हम US से Middle East नहीं जा सकते, वो एक बिल्कुल different gen है. हम US से Pakistan नहीं आ सकते, it's a very different beast altogether. So we want to reuse or leverage our learnings, not get into markets which are completely different.
Fine. So a couple of questions, I'll quickly share them. Do specific types of projects and software deliverables have export control restrictions outside of Pakistan? I guess कोई specific vertical of software that has any kind of restrictions?
Yeah, generally मुझे इसका बहुत ज़्यादा नहीं पता लेकिन हैं मिसाल के तौर पे अगर आप US एम्बेसी वीज़ा लेने भी जाते हैं और आपके रेज़्यूमे या कहीं भी एन्क्रिप्शन का वर्ड आया हुआ है तो वो फ्लैग्स रेज हो जाते हैं, राइट? तो आप अगर सिक्योरिटी में काम कर रहे हैं और एन्क्रिप्शन एंड ऑल ऑफ दैट, राइट? इसी तरह से US के अंदर बहुत सारी चीज़ें हैं जो कि सेंसिटिव हैं, उसमें कंट्रीज लिस्टेड होती हैं कि आप ये चीज़ कर सकते हैं या नहीं कर सकते. तो यस सर्टेन एरियाज हैं बट अगेन दे वेरी फ्यू एंड यू नीड टू बी माइंडफुल ऑफ देम. जैसे वी मेक श्योर कि हम लोग किसी ऐसी चीज में काम ना करें जिसमें यूएस में गवर्नमेंट कॉन्ट्रैक्टिंग का एलिमेंट हो बिकॉज आई मीन दे आर वेरी वेरी रिस्ट्रिक्टिव, राइट? इसी तरह से अगर आप टेलकोस के साथ काम कर रहे हैं तो वो उनके साथ वो कंप्लायंस के बड़े मसले होते हैं कि डेटा कहाँ जा सकता है, राइट? वो पाकिस्तान नहीं आ सकता, वो डेटा कहाँ पे रिजाइड करेगा. तो there's tremendous spectrum. You just need to pick the ones that which is on the safer horizon, and again that's a huge market in itself.
Got it, Ji. Mudassir Latif's asking whether most of your clients build projects on a per resource or headcount basis, or do you also get sort of broader deliverable level bill?
हमारा 90% मॉडल जो है वो रिसोर्स ऑगमेंटेशन के ऊपर है एंड वी लाइक दैट बिकॉज सॉफ्टवेयर के अंदर प्रोजेक्ट्स को पहले से प्रेडिक्ट करना, एस्टिमेट करना बड़ा डिफिकल्ट काम है. एंड मोस्ट ऑफ चूंकि हम कैलिफोर्निया में काम करें आई थिंक वहाँ पे कल्चर बड़ा कॉमन है रिसोर्स ऑगमेंटेशन का. तो वी हैव अ फ्यू एक्सेप्शंस लेकिन बाय एंड लार्ज वी वर्क विद द रिसोर्स ऑगमेंटेशन मॉडल्स. इट्स बिल्ड बाय पीपल, बाय टीम्स, not against specific deliverables.
Gee, then a couple of other questions. A bit of insight into the process of training and hiring local resources and about their communication skills. So that is something, I guess, if someone sitting abroad is looking to set up a back office or a development shop in Pakistan, how do you look at this talent dimension in terms of sourcing? And the other is what are opportunities for expats in terms of getting involved with you as, say, advisors, non-executive directors, or specific input in terms of investment, etc. And while I'm at it, I'll throw the third one. Agar aapko reminder ki zarurat hui to main de dunga. When are you creating presence on East Coast in the US? ZK pooch rahe hain ji. So the first one, talent, quality of talent that you get from the NUSTs and the FAST, the GIKIs.
अच्छा मैं आई थिंक इसमें से कुछ चीजें अगली कुछ स्लाइड्स में कवर होंगी, कुछ चीजें जो रह जाएंगी आई ट्राई टू एड्रेस देम टुवर्ड्स द एंड बट आई हैव टेकन अ नोट ऑफ ऑल ऑफ दोस क्वेश्चंस. मुझे लग रहा है कि ये टाइम हमारे पास जो है ये
नहीं वैसे टाइम के हवाले से ये आई थिंक देयर इज एन इंटरेस्ट इन द कम्युनिटी तो and I think you've covered it in a very nice way, so maybe if Ali also provisions for it, but we can maybe go a little bit over so that is we can kind of accommodate that. Ali, would you agree? Yeah.
Gigi, I guess those who have a hard stop will obviously leave, and those who can stay on, they will carry on. So not an issue.
And for those who have a hard stop, we always have the recording available after the fact. So, but I think there is some good momentum here, so let's continue with that.
Alright, ठीक है. अच्छा मैं इस स्लाइड को मैं बहुत डिटेल में नहीं जाता लेकिन ये एक बड़ा इंटरेस्टिंग वानाबी सिंड्रोम है कि पाकिस्तान में जितने भी सर्विसेज कंपनीज हैं वो प्रोडक्ट्स भी बना चाहते हैं बिकॉज I don't know, they find products to be sexy or whatever. Yeah, it's perhaps the grass on the other side is always greener. Yeah, it is perhaps के services में काफी grunt work है and people get tired. What happened? I mean, many things, right? there are key things to understand कि services के अंदर जो सबसे important चीज़ है that is reuse leverage कि आप काम इस तरीके से करें. This is kind of an engineering discipline kind of a thing कि आप maximum अपने काम को reuse कर सकें. And again आप जितना vertically focused होंगे आपका reuse leverage उतना बढ़ेगा, which means आपकी profitability उतनी बढ़ेगी, which means your dependence upon star performance internally reduce हो जाएगी. Your quality of work will increase because अगर आप reuse ज़्यादा है वो it's tried and tested thing, you know the quality will be much better. इसी की जो एक advanced form है that is a solution कि आप समझते हैं कि भाई ठीक है आपको पैटर्न्स दिखने के यार हमारे मोस्ट कस्टमर्स जो हैं वो एक ही चीज तरह की चीज मांग रहे हैं तो उसको हमें कुछ एक रफ फॉर्म में प्री पैकेज करके रख लें ताकि उसको हम एक बेहतर तरीके से इस्तेमाल कर सकें या कस्टमर को प्रेजेंट भी कर सकेंगे यार ये एक बनी बनाई चीज़ें आप बताएं उसको कैसे आपके लिए कस्टमाइज या ट्वीट करें. जो प्रोडक्ट है दैट्स completely different ball game. I mean, इसमें you know, and we come from a product background. We are having made multiple failed attempts, right? So we are very very mindful कि हमने अगर product की side पे जाना भी है, तो हम खाली joint venture में जाएंगे, where we are the technology partner, and there's somebody else who has a very strong presence in terms of selling and monetization, and it's kind of a joint venture. Just to give you an example. Of solutions, right? हम लोग I think इस वक्त जितने भी customers के साथ काम करें, almost every customer has need for custom dashboarding and analytics, right? And we realized that you know there's 80% commonality across all of them, right? So we sort of in the final stages of announcing our own dashboard building tool K2, जिसके अंदर हमने वो सारी जो learnings हैं उनको उसको combine कर दिया. अच्छा इस tool को हम internally पिछले 6 महीने से use कर रहे हैं. So what has already happened is कि हमें जो काम करने में 2 महीने लगते थे हम वो 2 हफ्ते में कर लेते हैं. तो जो reuse leverage है उसकी efficiencies हमने already gain करनी शुरू कर दी हैं. Now whether we can sort of you know generate additional revenue on top of that, हम customer से कहते हैं यार ये solution है इसके अंदर बहुत सारी चीजें बनी बनाई हैं आप you know हम 6 महीने का काम आपको 1 महीने में करके देंगे लेकिन प्रीमियम चार्ज करेंगे. कस्टमर कहता है बल्ले बल्ले यार ठीक है you know मेरा time to market reduce हो रहा है great I'll give you a premium lovely. If they say I'll not give you a premium, we'll say, okay, we'll deliver it in 6 months. But we can still do the work in 1 month, which means that our profitability increase hogi, right? So these are the kind of things that we focus heavily on, कि वो हम reuse leverage कैसे करें. जो एक FPGA से related question था, I think this is, Ali, can you sort of address this? This is, I think हमें इसको announce किए 2 हफ्ते हुए. This is our first solution that we've built, that we're trying to sell now. And again, we are looking for the right partners. We already had a partner. उनके अपने कुछ existential मसले बन गए, and I think we're in talks with a couple of others. But Ali, can you explain this?
Right. So if you're related to electronic trading in any shape or form, you know that connecting to trading venues, exchanges, and ingesting the multicast data from there is extremely important. You have to do that extremely fast and extract actionable insights from that data so that you can trade. Your algorithms can crunch that data and place trades successfully. So actionable insights is essentially building order books for various securities from that market data feed. Latency is super critical here. What we've achieved is through a pure software implementation, paying a lot of attention to detail and optimizing things down to like almost down to the instruction level or the cache level or how the memory is interacting with how our software data flows are behaving. We've been able to achieve 2.5 to 3 times better latency than the industry leading solutions. We have also optimized the network stack from your processor all the way down to the wire, so that in a wire-to-wire fashion, like what sort of the industry standard, like they care about when did this packet arrive on the wire and when did your response go out on the wire. We have achieved FPGA rivaling latency. So FPGAs are sort of the name of the game. If you have a pure latency strategy, what we've achieved with software is within nipping distance of FPGAs. So this is something which so just to give you an idea how fast is fast. So we build, and the moment we get a message delivered over the socket, from socket to making that API call, where we have already built the order book for securities, 100 nanoseconds. This 100 nanoseconds is like 100 nanoseconds is less than the time it takes light to travel 100 feet. So this is sort of the order of the kind of latencies we've achieved with software, and all from this team of EEs that have gone through our boot camp and are doing software with a hardware engineer's perspective and optimizing these things to get these kinds of numbers. We have 3 exchanges, CME, Eurex, and ICE already available. These are the top 3 exchanges in the world, and there's a few that are in the pipeline.
So one senior guy and 3 or 4 extremely smart EE kids who were groomed and trained very efficiently, very effectively, and to produce these results, right? So I mean, you know, partly उस question को answer कर रहा हूँ कि talent की availability क्या है. So कुछ pockets में EE talent is being wasted in Pakistan because EE के लिए कोई opportunities नहीं है. And you know, Ali and I, we have this very concerted focus to how can we tap into that talent, not just for ourselves, but you know, there is an altruistic goal as well. Okay, how can we create opportunities for these people? Because I mean, some of these kids are extremely sharp and they just don't get any opportunities. Moving on, the case for Pakistan. Pakistan के advantage basically है कि you know, the top talent है वो हमारे लिए accessible है, because we're not competing with Googles and Facebooks of the world, right? eMumba can be a big enough brand in Islamabad, even with 150 people, that people aspire to join the company, right? And we can get the top talent and we can retain the top talent, right? दूसरी चीज जो समझने वाली है पाकिस्तान के एडवांटेज at this point is कि पाकिस्तानी डायस्पोरा अभी उस स्टेज पे जो इंडियन डायस्पोरा शायद आज से 15 साल या 20 साल पहले था, right? All of you guys, right? मुझे 22 साल हो गए इंडस्ट्री में, right? So मेरे साथ के जितने भी लोग हैं यूएस के अंदर कहीं भी हैं, and even people who are मुझसे 5, 6, 7, 8 साल जो जूनियर हैं, they are in very, very key positions, right? And there's tremendous opportunity, untapped opportunity. It's not being converted properly at all. I'm perhaps maybe I'm wrong, but I'm perhaps the most networked GIKI, and क्योंकि मैं पिछले बहुत ऐसे से travel कर रहा हूँ and you know UK and other places, and I meet people and I'm blown away by you know how accomplished even the youngsters are, right? Or just in key positions पे वो बैठे हैं, right? And we're not connecting those dots. Or there's less competition locally, right? Even other companies. So for us to be able to attract top talent and retain is a lot easier. Try doing that in India with Amazon and Facebook and Google sitting next to you. I mean, you don't have a chance, right? Disadvantage, you know, our brand. I mean, it sucks, right? दूसरी चीज, there's limited talent. कि अगर आप, you know, आप कहते हैं जी मैंने 6 महीने में 500 बंदों की टीम बनानी है, you know, we're not there yet. We're not there in terms of scale and just in terms of numbers, right? Travel challenges to Pakistan, this is very significant. अगर हम, you know, बाहर के लोग अगर पाकिस्तान visit कर लें, I mean, it's a game changer. The kind of visibility they get, the kind of attraction they get, the kind of confidence they get, it's a game changer. And that has been one of the biggest challenges in the past 10 years. I've not been able to invite a single customer to Pakistan successfully in the past 10 years, right? And there were moments when people had booked the tickets, everything was sorted. तो यहाँ पे कोई वो खादिम हुसैन और whatever लटरम पटरम something happened. It was all ऐसे लगता है जैसे हमेशा टाइमिंग परफेक्ट होती है कि बंदा आने वाला और यहाँ पे कुछ ना कुछ लटरम पटरम हो जाता है, right? Limited pool of experienced people. This is one of the key challenges. कि जो brain drain है, I think I'm in favor of that, because all of you people sitting abroad is my leverage. If you guys are not there, I can do very little, you know, with our branding issues and all of that, right? So I'm not somebody who is very anti brain drain, right? लेकिन एक challenge हमें ये जरूर आता है कि you know 10, 12, 13, 14 साल वाले really seasoned experienced लोग आपको market में बहुत limited मिलते हैं, right? And you know at some point you need those people. Limited established verticals. अगर आपने मिसाल के तौर पे नेटवर्क की इंडस्ट्री में काम करना है तो पाकिस्तान में आपको बंदे मिलेंगे नहीं, बिकॉज यहाँ पे नेटवर्क की इंडस्ट्री नहीं है. आप बे एरिया चले जाएं, आप पत्थर फेंक के नीचे से 2 बंदे निकलेंगे जो नेटवर्क के चैंपियन होंगे, बिकॉज वहाँ पे लाखों लोग हैं जो इसमें काम कर रहे हैं और दुनिया में और कोई ज्योग्राफी नहीं है, perhaps with the exception of India and China. India इसलिए because all of those networking companies have their offshore presence over there. They have labs, they have people जो कि पिछले 20 साल से इसमें काम कर रहे हैं. तो इस तरह के बहुत सारे वर्टिकल्स जो कि पाकिस्तान में एग्जिस्ट नहीं करते, वो टैलेंट आपको प्रिपेयर्ड नहीं मिलता, राइट? because यूनिवर्सिटी ये टैलेंट प्रिपेयर नहीं करती. आपको प्रोडक्ट मैनेजमेंट का बंदा यहाँ नहीं मिलेगा, because यहाँ पे प्रोडक्ट बेस्ड कंपनीज नहीं है, and product management is not something that's being taught at schools, right? Nowhere in the world, right? तो you have to be wise कि भाई आपने वर्टिकल में अपॉर्चुनिटी है, लेकिन आप समझते हैं कि भाई पाकिस्तान में तो ये वर्टिकल एग्जिस्ट ही नहीं करता, तो टैलेंट कहाँ से आएगा? I mean, so you have to be mindful के which verticals you sort of tap into. My sort of
quick, sorry to interrupt, Owais bhai, there's a comment on the chat which I think, in the interest of time, we've got 3 minutes to go, and there's Amir Waheed who's mentioning that he's been able to establish some kind of a business development model with eMumba, as opposed to, you know, setting up his own shop out of Pakistan. So do you think you can do justice to that in 3 minutes in terms of what that business development or partnership model he's
absolutely
referring to?
मेरी last slide उसी के ऊपर थी, but if you want I can jump onto that because I think इस audience में शायद काफी सारे लोग उस topic पे perhaps ज़्यादा interested हैं, but let me go to that slide opportunity for you, right? I mean, ये चीज़ I cannot emphasize this enough, the power of network, right? So let me take a minute to sort of talk about this. मुझे नहीं पता कि इस पूरे सेशन में तमाम GKs हैं, perhaps mostly GKs हैं, कुछ outsiders भी होंगे, लेकिन I just want to emphasize कि अगर आप किसी trusted network का हिस्सा हैं, and so the key word is trusted, and GKs, there's tremendous amount of trust. You know, I've recently visited UK. Ali, through you, जो batch 10, batch 11, batch 9 के लोग जो मिलते हैं, जिनके साथ, you know, there was zero overlap, right? And we meet them for the first time in our lives, and this, you know, it's as if, you know, we've known each other for ages, right? And they'll do anything for you, right? And this is tremendous, and there's tremendous potential in that, right? So the power of GKIN network. I mean, GKINs, I want to emphasize that लोग बहुत key positions पे बैठे हैं, we're not connected enough. So this is an amazing initiative which is allowing people to come together and at least share ideas and thoughts and all of that, right? This network alone can generate tremendous value in Pakistan, but just connecting the dots, right? And a few ideas, ये जो आमिर जो यहाँ पे, so engagement models जो, I mean, जो पहला जो category, that is what I call sweat it out, right? You're not putting any money. हमारे लिए growth का सबसे बड़ा challenge ये था कि हम सब लोग अमेरिका छोड़ के पाकिस्तान आ गए, and customers हमारे सारे अमेरिका में हैं, so we don't have a presence in the US, right? Traveling back and forth, fine, right? But अगर हम एक enterprise customer के साथ जा रहे हैं, you need to have local presence. How do you continue to work on leads? I mean, there's continuity आपको चाहिए बड़े customers को करने के लिए. We try to hire people, and hiring is difficult. I mean, why would somebody work for a company based out of Pakistan? और आपको अगर आप पहला बंदा hire करें, it has to be a top guy. It becomes very difficult. And eventually, it's a long story. Eventually, we settled on a model where we said कि we'll get high profile, really connected people like Amir Waheed. Amir is from Amir from 4th batch, I guess, whatever. Or the 4th batch, right? So I've known Amir for a long time, and maybe and all of that, right? Yeah. And Amir was in the networking industry. I'm like, yeah, you know, you're a very well-connected guy. I mean, he's one of the rare species who is extremely technically competent, and he's extremely well networked, right? बहुत सारे लोग networking को उतना focus नहीं कर रहे होते, right? So why did he become our advisor? And we came up with a model where we said कि ये जो 10-18 का model है, right? It's a very specific model. Okay, you get 10% of revenue for the first 18 months of any lead that you bring to us. And Amir has already generated leads for us that have converted, and we're generating very good revenue, and then Amir is sort of getting a benefit of that, right? And all Amir had to do was really understand what we were doing, which he spent a lot of time on, right? And then one session, very high quality session where he introduced, we had that session, and that's all he had to do, right? Just connecting those dots, because once you're in that position, that introduction is worth a lot, right? And this is the model that we believe we want to grow with, right? We want to have trusted people in the UK. We want to have trusted people in multiple geographies in the US, because I would rather travel less. I would rather work through these people who spend, and my understanding is that if you are technical, all you need is to invest 10 hours to understand enough of what we're doing, and then you just have to go in your network and see कि क्या चीज़ कहाँ पे dots को connect करना है, right? This is not a sales model जिसमें आपने एक बस्ता उठा के फिरना है, right? You just need to have conversations with people to understand कि किसकी क्या need है. जहाँ पे need है, you do them a favor in terms of offering them the right introduction. Yeah, I think I can solve this problem for you. Again, I can talk about that separately, maybe offline or whatever. Like, this is a model that we are very aggressively working on, and Amir over here is a testimony to that this is working really well. दूसरी चीज जिसमें आप काम कर सकते हैं, पाकिस्तान में majority companies, one services company 1 million वाले mark को hit नहीं कर पा रही. वो पिछले 4-5 साल से 400K, 600K, 700K बस उससे फंसी नहीं है. मतलब primary challenge is business development and good strategic advice. If you can work with those companies, और ये जो 5 into 5x का model is, 5 years में क्या आप उनको 5x grow करवा सकते हैं कि नहीं? Which means जो 500K generate कर रही है, क्या आप उसका revenue 2.5 billion तक लेके जा सकते हैं कि नहीं? जो 1 million कर रही है, आप उसको 5 million तक लेके जा सकते हैं कि नहीं in 5 years? And this is very doable, right? And if you can get involved in that and make that happen, and again, a lot of companies are hungry for this, because we had an unfair advantage. I lived in the US, I had a network, and not with this intention, but I did a lot of time volunteering when I was in the US, Open Silicon Valley and what have you. और मुझे 15 साल के बाद पता लगा कि उसकी worth क्या थी, right? And then hybrid lifestyle. I mean, a lot of people are actually thinking, जिनके साथ मैं बात करें कि यार, we don't want to work anymore. अगर आप business development के model पे जाते हैं और अगर आप 5 leads generate कर देते हैं, you can generate enough where depending upon आपका lifestyle क्या है, perhaps you don't have to work. And you don't have to limit this to अगर आप सिर्फ eMumba के साथ काम नहीं करें. If you have a good network, work with 5 different companies in Pakistan. एक e-commerce की है, एक networks की है, एक XYZ की है, and do that. I mean, this can, if I were in the US and knowing what I know now, I would invest a couple of years to get to a point where I could just do this, which means maybe a couple of hours of work every day and not do anything else, right? And I say that with serious conviction. एक और चीज जिसमें आई थिंक हमारी बड़ी जो जरूरत है वो एक्विजिशंस की है. और जाहिर बात है सर्विसेज इंडस्ट्री में जो एक्विजिशंस होती हैं वो एक्चुअली हायर्स के राउंड होती हैं. मिसाल के तौर पे आई हैव अ फर्म बिलीफ कि हम लोग अगर इजराइल में बेस्ड होते तो अभी तक हमें कुछ नेटवर्क की कंपनीज एक्वायर कर चुकी होती हैं, जस्ट बिकॉज द काइंड ऑफ वर्क वी हैव डन एंड द टैलेंट दैट वी हैव, राइट? बट बीइंग इन पाकिस्तान इट्स डिफिकल्ट, राइट? लेकिन इट्स आल्सो दैट वी हैव नेवर ट्राइड. So somebody got to give it a shot, right? And I say that what is required is you need to have a Pakistani with a spine, right? So Pakistani, I classify them to Pakistan bahar baithe mein into multiple categories, right? There's the Pakistanis who are indifferent, Gora style, whatever it is, right? The Pakistanis who feel for Pakistan but will not take a stand. And then the Pakistanis with the spine, like Amir Wahid, like many others, because जैसे मैंने कहा कि मैं without taking names, I got my biggest breaks through GIKIans who took a stand. Yeah, I'm going to do this, and they made it happen, and we made them successful as well, right? But they believed in us and they trusted, and they took a stand, right? So that's a Pakistani with this spine, right? And then अगर आपने पैसे डालने हैं तो I think there are companies in Pakistan, services companies जो कि perhaps would not mind taking investment to build new verticals. मिसाल के तौर पे अगर AI machine learning का vertical खड़ा करना है तो it's a significant investment, right? Not huge, but you at least need to put in anywhere from $100,000 to $250,000 कि भी आपने इसको seriously build करना है, where you have capacity 30-40 people and scale it out there. इसी तरह कुछ companies working capital में फंसी हुई होती हैं, तो you can come up with and these are less risky model as compared to dealing with extremely new startups, right? तो ये possibilities exist करती हैं. हमारे जितने भी initiatives थे वो self funded थे, लेकिन it's not necessary कि हमारे तमाम initiatives self funded हो. We would rather कि हम अपना risk थोड़ा सा diversify करें and be more aggressive in those things. मिसाल के तौर पे we can reimagine कि अली का पूरा जो vertical अभी accelerated software का जो काम कर रहा है उसको हम क्या 5x बड़े vision के साथ उसको लेके चल सकते हैं कि नहीं, by getting some investment and going around that. We haven't made a decision on that. लेकिन ये सारी possibilities exist करती हैं if you have people with you जिनको आप trust करते हैं. So these were a few thoughts on the question around how can people contribute to these areas. So for us, we are specifically looking for the model जिसमें आमिर वहीद हमारे साथ काम कर रहा है, business development advisory model के अंदर, primarily to help us grow win new customers through the network. See,
Owais is I think a comment that will resonate with most of those in the audience. I think it's been a very, very engaging and insightful conversation. Having said that, there's appetite for going a bit deeper into the 4 verticals that you guys are working in, and I think it was let me just follow-up question to go deeper into the 4 verticals so that people can then connect the dots in terms of how specifically they can be of help to eMumba in terms of these partnerships, business development opportunities that you're referring to.
अली इसका एक तरीका ये हो सकता है कि हमारा जो एक डेक है, I can share that deck with you. आप लोगों ने फिर जैसे भी ग्रुप के साथ सर्कुलेट करना है, you can do that. उसके अंदर there will be a lot more information. I wouldn't say कि बहुत deep information होगी, लेकिन sufficient information for people to understand कि हम क्या काम कर रहे हैं. And then we are available for any offline sort of conversation that people would like to have.
Sure, I think Saad bhai manages the mailing list, so we can always share that that more detailed deck, and then if you want to hook up with those individuals for more specific conversations, we can go for that. Ali Fahad just suggested we can actually set up a dedicated WhatsApp group for eMumba business development. And send out an invite on the sort of mother group, and anyone who's specifically interested can take that tangent and work more closely with you guys.
Absolutely.
Gee. There was another question in terms of switching from EE// project management track to software development. Any online courses or specific pathways you'd recommend? I think it's coming from a slightly
youngster,
more sort of ये youngster की तरफ से है सवाल, but
हमने
I guess
हमने उसका curriculum सा बनाया हुआ है, right? I think हम उसको again offline share कर सकते हैं कि भाई these are a few things that you can go through. हमने in fact boot camps किए हुए हैं, पिछले साल 2 boot camps किए थे, and then we realized यार ये boot camp takes a lot of energy. So now what we're doing is that we're taking that curriculum to हम 6th या 7वें सेमेस्टर में बच्चों को जाके पूरी कहानी सुना देते हैं कि भाई जान ये opportunity है, ये curriculum है, you have enough time between now and the time you graduate. Why don't you work on this yourself, right? So वो हम share कर देंगे so that people can get a good sense के what is it that we are looking for in terms of the EE people. But fundamentally आपने जो CS के जो core चीजें हैं, algorithms, data structures, and a couple of other things, I mean that's all it takes.
Gee, I think you've already touched on this to a certain extent. Nabil Ahmed had asked about the quality of the fresh graduates coming out of the top universities in terms of hands-on coding ability. So, and I guess how
there is a variation. कुछ universities हैं जिनका DNA बड़ा software centric है, जैसे कि FAST है. FAST हमेशा से I think they've been very focused on serving the industry. उनके ज़्यादातर बच्चे जो हैं वो they're very proficient. Some others are not as much. बाकी यूनिवर्सिटी से भी आपको टैलेंट जो है वो आई थिंक सिलेक्टिवली अच्छा मिलता है. कुछ लोग होते हैं जो कि नेचुरल होते हैं, they're naturally good and they spend a lot of time in doing building stuff and all of that, right? So you have to hunt them down, but there is a variation. There's also again काफी इसमें बातें की जा सकती हैं, लेकिन retention के point of view से there are other dynamics as well. मिसाल के तौर पे ComStats में there's a certain socio-economic class जो कि generally वहाँ पे जा रही होती है. Those people are generally much more they have a lot of respect for the opportunities they get in, when they join the market, right? Whereas some of the premium schools, I mean, they love to switch and hop around. और होता ही again, it's a network effect कि मिसाल के तौर पे, I mean, let's say there's X university और उसके एक बच्चा जो है वो एक कंपनी में चला गया और उसको X amount of salary मिल रही है, और उसके एक दोस्त है जो किसी और जगह पे गया, उसको X plus 2X मिल रही है, तो उसको खींच के वहाँ ले जाएगा, right? So there's a lot of top universities में पहले 6 से 9 महीने में there's a lot of movement that happens, and that's very unsettling for most companies, right? So इस्लामाबाद में बहुत सारी companies है जो कि let's say fast या नस से hiring उन्होंने छोड़ दी है, including GIK as well, right? Because they feel कि I mean it's just impossible to retain these guys, right? So again, I think generally हमारा goal ये होता है कि we focus on the capabilities and the capacity of people, और उनकी अगर कुछ shortcomings हैं in terms of कि अगर उनका course अच्छे नहीं थे, teachers अच्छे नहीं थे, तो वो हम we make it our responsibility to provide that opportunity to them by proper mentoring and coaching.
Gee, there's a question around, in terms of scaling and taking the business to the next level, is going the IPO route something on your radar? I know I've had those conversations with your team where people have talked about, we want to be the Wipro equivalent out of Pakistan and all. So
देखिए अभी हम आईपीओ वाली चीज के बारे में नहीं एक्टिवली सोच रहे. हमारा इस वक्त जो इमीडिएट शॉर्ट टर्म जो गोल है वो ये कि हम अपनी प्रॉफिटेबिलिटी, लेट्स से हम जितनी हमारी इस वक्त रेवेन्यू हम उसको 2x कैसे करें. और 2x नॉट बाय जस्ट हैविंग 2x पीपल, कैन वी generate 2x the revenue with 1.2x the people. This is the fundamental equation that we are trying to solve. और उसका जो अगेन ये जो पूरी अटेम्प्ट्स हैं जो अली की टीम काम कर रही है, जो हम जो डैशबोर्डिंग का काम कर रहे हैं, अगेन how do you bring efficiencies into the work that we're doing so that we're not as dependent upon the headcount as we currently are, right? So I think we want to fix that unit economics first, because उसके बगैर अगर आप उसको खाली horizontally scale करना शुरू कर दें तो perhaps you can build a 500 people company if you are able to generate the business and all of that, right? But is that really the kind of company you want to build? Our goal is yes, we want to grow in terms of people, but after fixing that unit economics कि हम ज़्यादा premium space में कैसे जाएं, efficiencies कैसे gain करें.
Gee, similar question tha, are you looking for P funded growth money? But I think you broadly addressed that. And let me, so there's comments out there where Usman suggesting that the WhatsApp group that gets created loops in other GKIans in the IT services space, because at times they have to drop active opportunities जो उनकी context में worthwhile या manageable नहीं है, which other GKI community businesses can pick up potentially. So I think that's a wonderful thought, and
I agree. I endorse that. I think the key thing is that the work should come to Pakistan. It doesn't matter whether it comes to us or not. I think that's the key thing, कि ये collaboration बने, इसके beneficiary सब होंगे.
जी. And then Nabil made a comment around whether hackathon events are a good way of sort of testing out how good the talent out of a certain university or sources.
It is, but it's a very expensive way of doing it. Keep in mind कि company के जो resources लगते हैं and how we sort of recruit people, we need to be mindful of our time as well. So we're always looking for efficient ways of doing that. Hackathon is a useful way, but it's a very expensive way. Expensive का मतलब ये कि the amount of time, the human capital, the mindset that goes into making it happen, right? हमारा गोल ये होता है कि of course if you're looking for developers, we want to make sure that they're able to develop, right? तो उनकी coding skills को कैसे assess किया जाए, problem solving को कैसे assess किया जाए, तो we have our own process that's always evolving, always changing, but it involves a lot of coding.
Asim Ghaffar had mentioned the potential use of Sacker rank to scale people, to screen people or talent at scale. Not
hacker
sure
rank,
if you're
hacker rank.
It's hacker rank. हम use कर रहे हैं.
Okay, sorry, that's potentially a typo.
It's one of the more popular things out there. Other alternatives as well, but hacker rank obviously is a very popular tool to evaluate programmers and perhaps other things as well.
Great. Let me just have a quick look at the chat window to make sure we've covered all the questions. So Usman's just made a follow-up comment about the group around business development for IT services companies out of Pakistan and broadly in the GIKI community, and obviously it's not GIKIan specific. For those out of on the call who are not GIKIans, this is, I would say, a broader overseas Pakistanis coming together to essentially take business to Pakistan. So are we done with the deck, Owais bhai, or there was one slide that I sort of
नहीं, मुझे अगर 2 मिनट दो तो मैं इसको wrap up कर लेता हूँ.
जी.
तो ये I mean ये जो मैंने there's the question is, Pakistan, where to from here, right? I think a lot of discussion goes around कि भाई India वाला model हम कैसे replicate करें, and my belief is कि हमें उसको replicate नहीं करना. These are different times. The key thing is जो हमारे सारे challenges in branding and all of that. I mean, how do we do things where we become a dot on the map? Like that's the key thing. We need to do a few things as a community, as a country, focused on IT, जिसमें हमारे 3 या 4 areas के अंदर एक strength हमारी नजर आनी शुरू हो जाए कि हाँ यार Pakistan is known for this, right? For instance, just to give you an example, अली की टीम ने अभी जो ये काम सारा जो कर रहे हैं, this is a कुछ लोगों को आपको शायद पता हो DPDK is a key technology. अली की टीम ने अभी contributions किए हैं. ये इनका पिछला चार्ट था पिछले क्वार्टर का. अगले क्वार्टर में इसमें अगर हम देखें तो इंटेल है टॉप पे, Mellanox है, Marvel and other companies. इस चार्ट में हमारा नाम भी आ जाएगा. eMumba will be a part of this chart, right? And this will be a big thing because ये जितनी भी दुनिया में लोग DPDK इस्तेमाल करें, they would take a look at this chart कि भाई कौन contributors हैं, and eMumba being there, it becomes the dot of the map, right? So we have to be selective कि भाई हम किन चीज़ों में पाकिस्तान में talent है जिसको harness किया जा सकता है, convert किया जा सकता है, and we need to align our sort of focus. कि let's pick those 3 or 4 verticals, 3 or 4 areas, and I've been working with agency and other groups as well to advise on similar patterns. कि यार let's not spread ourselves thin. So अगर let's say networks की बात होती है, whatever that is, right? Whatever those verticals are, Pakistan should become a known commodity in those areas. Also, Pakistan को जो मतलब, how do you sell Pakistan? This is very, very important, and a few things that have worked well for us. A picture is worth 1,000 words, a video even more. Whenever we talk to people, we always show them a video, right? Because जो वीडियो हम दिखाते हैं उन्होंने पाकिस्तान की वैसी वीडियो नहीं देखी होती. वो इमेज तालिबान सेंट्रिक ही होता है, वो पटके ही होते हैं और वो लगता है कि पता नहीं हम किन स्टोन एजेस में हैं, and you show these videos and they're blown away, and the texture of the conversation is very different altogether. I always show this slide of Islamabad that says 2.0, 40 and 70%, and I asked them, can you give me make a guess कि 3 numbers क्या indicate कर रहे हैं, right? And it just engages them, but fundamentally 2.0 is the population, 2 million people. 40 is the number of universities in Islamabad in this region, and that's mind-blowing. And they're shocked. Really? 40 universities, right? 70% of total PhDs in Pakistan are based out of Islamabad in the suburban areas. आप ये numbers बताते हैं और आप कहते हैं ठीक है, these are not Stanfords and Harvards of the world, लेकिन 40 universities में से top 1% we can attract. Are you interested in that talent or not? And that, I mean, there's a pause over there, because then people are sort of, you can see the sparkle in the eyes, right? Retention का बताएं कि हम कैसे ऐसे retain कर सकते हैं, because we're not competing with Google and I mean, so we have to find the right way to sell Pakistan. I think we're not doing justice to that. And just to give you an idea, हमने ये video, I don't know whether हमने वीडियो को 4-5 साल पहले बनाई थी प्लमग्रेड के साथ मिलके, just to promote Islamabad. Then we created another video for life at eMumba, right? तुम्हारे workout sessions, again, I mean, it just brings a different life to the conversation, right? The real people, there's real environment, the real mountains, the real cars, whatever it is, right? So we have to find the right way to sell Pakistan, and I don't think we're doing justice to that so far. Yeah, I think I'm done with my tech. Ali.
Zabardast, Owais bhai, was a pleasure, as it always is, engaging with you, and I think we've had some good follow-up actions come out of the conversation. If needed, the offshoot WhatsApp group that will be set up, if there's a need for a follow-up call, I think that can also be organized. Otherwise, the content, the links that you've shared, these YouTube videos, etc., we'll try and pass them on the WhatsApp group. And thank you so much for all those who have been a very engaged and genuinely interested audience.
Thank you everybody. I'm humbled कि इतने लोग आए और वो ठहरे भी रहे. So really humbled with all the presence. And बिल्कुल I'll be sharing, मैं deck भी share कर दूँगा साथ तुम्हारे साथ. You can sort of share it with the people. और फिर WhatsApp के ग्रुप को भी डिस्कस कर लेते हैं इसको कैसे फ्लोट करना है and how do we go about it. तो वो उसको ऑफलाइन डिस्कस कर लेंगे.
Thank you, Ji. Thank you, everyone. Allah Hafiz.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Allah Hafiz.